Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 256 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this holiday week, starting with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How are you doing today, Richard?
I'm doing great. It's holiday season. Magic's in a bit of a lull, but a lot of time to spend time, for the holidays with our family and friends and maybe play some Magic Arena.
Yeah, a nice little quiet-ish holiday week, although that's going to change quickly with the full start of Theros Beyond Death spoilers next week. But that's for next week. Right now we have another co-host, Krim. What's up today, Krim?
Morning, Seth. Today, this week's been a little slow, but I'm excited to, this gives us a lot of time to reflect on things that have happened this year.
Yeah, I think it's good timing for that. We're getting near the end of 2019, about to get into 2020 here in a little over a week. So the plan for today, we're going to talk a bit about some Theros Beyond Death cards. We didn't get any cards from the set proper that are new this week, but we did get some theme deck cards, which are, some of them are like kind of interesting. So we wanted to mention those, but our main topic for today is going to be a part one of what I think is going to be a two-part discussion of kind of wrapping up the year of 2019. So today, we're going to focus on mostly the formats, what's been going on. We've got a bunch of new formats, changes to old formats, so kind of big picture format stuff. And then next week, we'll probably get into more of the specifics, specific cards, specific organized play changes, stuff like that. So that's going to be our plan. And then, of course, answering some fish mail to wrap up the cast. So that's our plan for today. Theros cards, year in review part one, and then answering fish mail. So I guess we might as well just jump right into it and start talking about these Theros cards. So just so it's clear, these cards, and then I'm going to kick it to Richard to guide us through them. These cards do not come in Theros Beyond Death proper. They come in the theme boosters, the 35 card color coordinated boosters. So that's where these cards come from. But some of them are pretty interesting, I think, at least semi-interesting. So Richard, guide us through these cards.
All right. We're not going to talk about all of them because there are a bunch, but we're going to pick out our favorites. And I think the most talked about card from the set of cards is Deathbellow Warcry. 5 red. So 8 CMC. Sorcery. Search your library for up to 4 Minotaur creature cards with different names, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle your library.
A powerhouse.
How do I win with 4 Minotaurs? I'm gonna get 3 mana 2/3s, so that's probably not the way to do it. But what is the combination of cards to win at 8 mana with Deathbellow Warcry?
Okay, so there's a few different ways you can do it depending on the format. One of the ways I've seen involves changelings. You can do combos with changelings and giving them haste. There is a Minotaur that gives everything haste, and then there's also a Fanatic of Mogis, which is the red devotion Minotaur. It's basically like the red Gray Merchant, deals damage equal to your devotion to red. So most of the combos I have seen involve getting a Minotaur that gives all your Minotaurs haste, getting Fanatic of Mogis for some amount of draining. Then there's Kog'Maw Warcaller that gives all attacking Minotaurs +2/+0, and then Rage Blood Shaman gives everything trample and +1/+1. So that's most of what I've seen is something in that direction, discounting Arcane Adaptation shenanigans, where if you can turn everything into Minotaurs, then you can do it however you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at some blue-red Minotaur lists, and I was like, all right, sure. Yeah, this seems fun. I mean, I don't know how. I think we had talked about it a little. It's just the awkward part is where you draw those Minotaurs naturally. Because the Minotaurs are not the greatest things, but maybe Theros changes that and this is an all-star.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the problem. It's like a Richard Commander deck.
Where,
yes, sure, your Skeleton deck has some good cards, but the problem is when you cast your, Demonic Tutor or your Blue Sun Zenith, you're, drawing a bunch of skeletons. Minotaurs is very much that way, as far as a tribe. They're not the most powerful tribe, but I don't know, would you play this, Richard, in a Minotaur tribal deck since you're a resident Jink tribal expert in Commander?
This is the only reason to play this card, right? If you're playing it with changelings and combo pieces, you're a spike and you're doing it wrong, right? You gotta play. You're I fetch up my 3 mana 1/2 or something. But I'm trying to think. There might actually be enough good Minotaurs to make this worth it to play fairly. because Wizards has been printing like decent Minotaurs for the last couple of years. So you might actually like theoretically cast this for 8 mana in Commander, and then like cast 4 Siege Rhinos or something. So it's possible that this is a fair card that is actually legitimate, especially since we have Theros coming up. We're gonna get even more Minotaurs, but Minotaurs is one of the hottest tribes to keep printing new cards.
Well, I mean that's true, right? M20 had the Buccaneer or whatever, the one that makes you discard or something like that.
That one.
Yeah, that one. They're just going wild with these Minotaur prints right now, you know? Just that only one that I could think of.
I do think a commander, though, like, if you can give your team haste, which you're a red deck, you have anger, you have a ton of ways to do it, getting, like, the various Nehebs is pretty powerful. Like, there's a one that makes a bunch of mana on your post-combat main phase for each damage you dealt, and then there's another one that kind of, like, mass loots when it deals damage and makes a bunch of mana when you discard and draw. So if you can, like, get a bunch of those are, like, semi-playable. Like, I've seen someone combo off with Neheb the Eternal in Commander before. Like, that's a thing that actually has happened. So maybe there's like a way to play it fairly if you're playing like a semi-casual Commander deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a guest appearance on Commander Clash. Like you Deathbell of Warcry, Neheb, and then you like Aggravated Assault, and then you wreck the whole table. Like from nothing, and then, right? You just top deck just like one card or something. You're like, gotcha.
And it doesn't exile itself, so you could like flash it back and get 4 more Minotaurs with your Neheb mana and just keep going.
8 Minotaurs in our deck.
Wait. Now, I sorry guys, I gotta quit the podcast. I gotta go brew.
Yeah.
So I think out of the rest of these cards, the other one that I've heard people talk about in like a semi-serious manner is Terror of Mount Velis, the other red one. That one's a 7 mana flying double strike dragon. You get a 5/5, and when it enters a battlefield, creatures you control gain double strike until undeterred. So what I mostly see people say with this one, as far as standard, is you can attack with Ilharg, put this into play. You're going to have essentially 10 flying double striking power from Terror, and then you give your Ilharg double strike, which is already a 6/6 trample, so that's like 22 mostly evasive damage if you just put this into play off Ilharg. So maybe there's some sort of like ramp spell, Rhythm of the Wild, Ilharg, put this into play 22U type of deck like we've seen in Pioneer, but in standard with this?
Yeah. I mean, is this better than just playing Ronus?
No, probably not. But
Ronus is another color though. You lock yourself into 2 colors.
But it's 2 less.
But Ilharg don't care. When you're putting it into play with Ilharg, mana cost goes out the window.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I am just seeing this card as another reason to kill all Kalia players like on the spot.
Yeah. Oh,
like, yes,
yeah.
don't mind if I do. If I drop this dragon in and give everything double strike, like no problem.
I think that's the biggest thing that it's got going. It's that it's the dragon type, so that does have, applications here and there. But I feel like I would just play Ronus.
All right. One more card. I want to talk about this. Grasping Giant.
Oh, Korg. It looks like Korg from Thor Ragnarok.
Looks like Thanos to me.
Oh, I guess, yeah, that also works too. But Korg, and yeah, like this card I thought was pretty cool at first.
So 5 in white, so 6 CMC. It's a 5/7 Vigilance Giant. Whenever Grasping Giant becomes blocked by a creature, exile that creature until Grasping Giant leaves the battlefield.
Is this good in any sense? Like,
no,
I mean, I guess
no.
if you're giant tribal, like, this is another giant, but isn't it just like a 5/7 unblockable for the most part?
Yeah, do you guys think this is good or bad? Because a lot of people point to this card and say, look, this is why white sucks, right? Everyone has like legitimate creatures, and then white gets a 5/7 for 6 mana that exiles a creature. So what can you do with it? You can, I don't know, lure up Grasping Giant, like exile their whole team.
Yeah.
You can give Trample, and I guess it just becomes unblockable. But that's it. Like that's kind of White's shtick here. Like you just exile it temporarily. This guy never dies in combat, has like 8 arms, but can only block 1 creature still.
I mean, White, yes. It's not a very good card. Although, I mean, I guess being a giant is an upside. We have, like, the giant, non-giant Wrath in Standard. So maybe that is, like, a reason to play it. It's something that survives.
Boros Giants. Because then you'll have a Bone Crusher Giant. and this.
Oh, then, although then you do have Grasping Giant in your deck, so
Yeah.
that is the drawback.
I think this is like one of the best arts on like the worst cards. It reminds me of 100-handed one, but at least that card had like potential, right? This card, like I don't know what you do with it. Like why? Like white creatures.
At least 100-handed one was funny. Like blocking 99 extra creatures, like that was the best part of that card, I think.
I wonder if that ever became relevant. Like someone
someone
like
had, like,
comboed and somehow
101
like
creatures.
they like emptied the Warrens and only made it to like 30 Storm or something, so they only got like 60 tokens and then you 100-handed one them.
You could probably like play it to time someone out with like Kiki Jiki style combos. Like, hey, you gotta do a lot of clicking to kill me through my 100-handed one.
All right, so there are a
what-
couple more previews, but we'll skip them. Some of them are actually not bad.
Yeah,
some of them are quite decent, but we'll save them for the set proper next week. So since we want to talk about 2019 year in review.
Yeah, so spoiler-wise, just so everyone knows, apparently they posted the schedule. It looks like there's a spoiler a day starting tomorrow through the rest of this week on like official Wizards channels like Magic Arena, the Mothership. And then next week on Monday is when we get the full start of everyone doing spoilers and content creators and all that. So that's where we're at with Arrows. But today's a day to look back on the past year of Magic. So I think we're going to focus at least first on what's been going on with the formats. We have a ton of formats in Magic. We had a bunch of new formats this year, and then a bunch of changes with older formats that have been around a while. So let's start with new formats, or formats that I guess we're going to throw Brawl, I guess, into the new format mix, even though it's kind of been around because it's new to Arena. So new format wise, what was our first big new format of the year? I guess it was probably the announcement that Brawl was coming to Arena was actually the first one. So, what do you guys think about Brawl this year? Brawl was a format that infamously last year had a person win a tournament by being the only person to show up at the tournament. It looked like it was pretty dead, but it seems like it is, at least from my perspective, been revitalized to some extent, at least, by coming to Magic Online. But what do you guys think about this year in Brawl?
It's cool that Arena has another format to play, and I think that's the appeal in Brawl, because it's just cool to see them add other cards also and whatnot, and just have another format to play that isn't standard.
I think Brawl is just historic. And we know how good historic is. Like, if Brawl was released on Magic Online, which it was, no one would play it. I think they wanted to make a commander format, so I think Brawl in paper, where you play with 4 different players, or 3 different players in a multiplayer format, that would be amazing. Like, I want to get into commander, but I don't want to buy cards from like 80 million years ago. I want to use my standard cards. Amazing. But as a 1v1 format, it's not too enticing. It's kind of just like standard. We play it on Arena because that's the only other thing we have to play, like discounting historic Brawl and then, the random events they give us. So I feel like it's a format that's propped up only because of Arena, and I haven't seen many people playing Brawl, for fun because they want to. It's just because that's the only thing they have. But I like to see the push to 4-player Brawl, and if they got that on Arena somehow, that'd be amazing.
I think the people that play Brawl play it because they find Standard slightly more miserable than Brawl, so it kind of wins by default in some cases. But no, it's definitely good to have additional formats on Arena. I don't really think that Brawl is ever going to be a paper format. I kind of feel like we already tried that, and it didn't actually catch on. So I don't know. Do you think there's any chance that when we're looking back on this next year that there is 4-player Brawl on Arena? Or is that just kind of a pipe dream and we'll never see multiplayer games on Arena?
I think it's going to be a while. and I'd rather have other things worked on.
I actually think it's the most important thing. So multiplayer, like, let's call it cooperative, right? Because when we play online, we are playing against someone and you're trying to smash their face in. We don't have a mode for multiplayer, and part of the fun of Magic is the gathering of people, and Wizards has kind of relegated that to paper, right? They're saying, okay, paper is where you gather as friends, but it's also the most popular aspect of Magic. So I see them trying to get that into Arena somehow. It's just hard. But the minute they figure it out, they're going to totally backtrack on their like, yeah, you know, Commander is for paper and Standard is for Arena. Like the minute they get multiplayer on Arena, like all in on Arena, because you know, we have so much fun on Commander Clash, right? Like, why can't we do that on like a modern client where everyone else plays and not like some obscure niche of players who are willing to go through Modo can play, right? Like, just imagine playing Commander on Arena. Like, that's crazy, right? Like, I think they'll eventually go there. So.
When I imagine playing Commander on Arena, though, I imagine the screen being so cluttered I can't actually understand what's going on. Like, that kind of happens in two-player games if the board gets really big and it's a long, grindy matchup. Like, I guess that's my question.
Is it any worse than Modo, though?
I think it actually is. Have you ever tried to block when there's like 40 creatures blocking and attacking and you just have like arrows pointing in every different direction? Could you imagine that if you were attacking like 3 different people with big boards? Like it would just, I don't even, my mind would explode trying to understand what was going on. So I think that's my concern. Like I would love it to happen, but I'm like skeptical if multiplayer could actually work without some big changes to just like how the game is displayed on Arena.
Yeah, like I don't think there's a way where you would be able to, like, I think you would have to just be able to like kind of like click on the top left to go to the other one person's board and then top right. You have to like add these arrows so you can just go look at boards.
Yeah, go artifact style, like zoom out, swap boards, zoom back in.
I mean, I think another possibility that has actually been like mentioned a little bit by Wizards when they've talked about multiplayer in Arena is the possibility that there's like a whole different game for that could come up in the future.
Oh, so I want to buy my cards for a third time, Seth. Maybe a fourth time if we count Magic Online.
But I mean, that's another possibility that maybe there's just like a Commander game that's in the works for the future.
That's not going to work out well. That's not going to work out well.
I mean, I think Seth is on. I think they will make some kind of Magic spin-off that will try to capture like multiplayer. Like it might not be 100% Magic, but it will be something like that. As you know, we've seen Wizards kind of spread their IP onto other games, so maybe they'll try some kind of like multiplayer mobile game.
Well, speaking of formats that are Commander-esque, but not quite Commander, we also had Oathbreaker this year, which is a format we got to play at GP Vegas, and people seem at least somewhat interested in. I think that's another format we should mention in our new format section. What do you guys think about the state of Oathbreaker? Are we past the point now where we have to worry about it being tiny leaders and just disappearing? Is that still a risk? Is this something that's going to be around a year from now, 2 years from now? What do you think about Oathbreaker at the moment?
I like it more than Brawl currently. And it's got some fun to it. I mean, like, I know that right now there's a little bit of I guess a fatigue with Planeswalkers, but I think it's pretty cool having the signature spell. It's a neat idea. But the concern here is if Commander ever allows you to make a Planeswalker your commander, then I think that takes a lot away from Oathbreaker.
Yeah, that's something I've pushed for too, and I hope happens eventually.
I mean, I thought the rules committee said they have thought about it and they laid out reasons why they will never want Planeswalkers as your commander. But I think the signature spell adds a big thing. Yeah. And if they somehow merge the two formats, then fine, I guess, right? Like, but I feel Oathbreaker kind of got the winds taken out of its sail with Pioneer. Like, Oathbreaker was a fresh new format. Everyone was enjoying it. You can't play it anywhere. That's a problem. Like, Magic Online doesn't support it. You have to have a group of players that they'll play Oathbreaker. But from when we played it, I thought it was really fun. I don't think it's limited like tiny leaders in the design of the format, so you have a lot of flexibility. We saw aggressive strategies, we saw controlling strategies, combos, whatever. So I feel Oathbreaker is pretty good. I wish there was some way to play it on Magic Online or Arena or something. And we need a Sultai Planeswalker. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I think that would go a long way, being able to play it somewhere digitally as far as like driving interest in the format. But I thought it was fun too. I don't know. I don't know where it fits in the hierarchy of like multiplayer formats. I mean, nothing's going to top Commander. Commander like is at the top of the hierarchy of all Magic formats at the moment. But I feel like Oathbreaker is definitely in that next level as far as like multiplayer formats. Where if you enjoy multiplayer formats, it's something that I think is at least worth checking out, and I expect it'll continue to have its dedicated fans moving forward. I don't think it'll completely disappear like Tiny Leaders has, arguably, where it's just not a thing anymore. I expect that it'll still see some play. Will it ever become the next Commander, where it's like getting products from Wizards or making like Oathbreaker themed decks and stuff? That's probably going to take a while if it ever does happen. Definitely more hit or miss there, but I think people will keep playing the format at least. Well, as far as new formats, I think we have at least one more, which is Arena's answer to Pioneer, which we'll get to in a minute. I guess maybe we just talk about these together. Pioneer and Historic. We had Pioneer announced, Historic announced basically the same time. Both are non-rotating formats. One is on Magic Arena, one is in papered on Magic Online. Historic and Pioneer, definitely big changes of the year. Where are we at with these formats?
Well, I'll start off with like, I think Historic is just, it does actually add a little bit more fun to Arena once again, adding just another format that we can play, like how we enjoy Brawl. Because now that, and I mean, right now Historic doesn't seem like much on Arena because only a few sets have rotated out since the release. But once we get more sets on Arena, Historic will kind of become its own thing, adding the, like, you know, the specific cards that they want to, where they can kind of just like choose what cards get printed. I think that's pretty cool. Like I think recently we just got Reese, or is it? It's Reese, right? Is that how you pronounce that? The Commander card?
I think so. I always said like Rise or something,
yeah,
but then get yelled at. So I think it's actually supposed to be Reese or something close to that.
Somebody in the comment section said that I've been hanging out with you too much because now I'm starting to warp my own words, and like I'm like, is that true? And then I listened back and I'm like, this is true. So Richard, I need your opinion on
I got nothing. It's Reese's, like the peanut butter cup.
All right, then.
Yes.
Reese's. Yeah, like adding cards like that I think is really sweet, and just them choosing what gets added to the format. Like seeing Phyrexian Arena, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie to you. And I want to see where this goes. There's a potential for this to be a lot of fun, and hopefully it eventually leads to them just adding Pioneer.
Yeah, I think that's my concern about Historic. I think it is fun, and it's nice, as we said about Brawl, to have more options on Arena, but I still can't shake the feeling that it's a filler format while we wait for Pioneer to come, and once Pioneer comes to Arena, then Historic will... Like, is there any chance they will both be successful on Arena at the same time? Like, or once Pioneer gets there, everyone's just going to play Pioneer, and Historic, like, withers and dies.
Well, the precursor to that is Historic being successful by itself.
I mean, like right now it has like players in the queue because you can like climb the ladder with it. But I don't. Is it always going to have a ladder? I can't remember. It keeps getting bounced back.
No, they're removing it.
Yeah, they're removing it.
I think it's going away when Theros, like for Theros season, when Theros comes out, and then coming back like a couple months after Theros releases for like the end of that standard period, basically.
Perfect. See, so like, yeah, there we go. There's, I don't know. Once they remove it off the competitive queue, people like it's just gonna like have like, it's gonna be a ghost town.
Like Historic is somehow like worse than Standard during, you know, the peak worstness of Standard. Like I play Historic, I play 10 matches, they all look exactly the same. Like literally exactly the same. I'm like, why is everyone playing the same deck? Because there's only like 2 decks, right? I haven't played Historic in the last month or a couple of weeks, I don't know. But when I played, it was all Gruul Embercleave, right? Like whoever got their Burning Emissaries out, and there was just no fun. Contrast that to Pioneer. You know, I build my deck, I play, I get smashed by this other deck, so I'm like, oh, I'll try that deck. And then I play that deck, and I get smashed by another deck. I'm like, oh, wait, that deck's probably better. And I'm doing this for literally hours, right? I've played like 15 decks or something, and they all seem good to me. They all fun. There's a deep card pool. I'm constantly brewing. Whereas with Historic, I'm like, okay, just smash together whatever broken Standard cards from the last like 6 months, and then here you go. And then here's the kicker, right? Historic is the place where you're supposed to play your old cards that were rotated out or banned out of Standard, But then they went and banned everything in Historic anyway, right? So if you built an Oko deck on Arena, you have no place to play Oko, right? Like,
I
so
mean,
I
Pioneer's
don't
still
know.
not going to give you that. So, like, I don't know.
But you have so many more cards. Historic is such a limited pool. And the sole reason was for you to play your rotated deck, and like half the cards don't work anymore because they're all banned.
Isn't that part of the, like, I mean, the issue is, like, because there aren't that many cards, you don't have many ways to interact, like that, any efficient ways. And even if you can, it still doesn't feel great, because in Pioneer, you can still interact with it. And Oko, like, destroys you anyways.
So the 20 cards they added should have been cards that like annihilate Oko, right? Or, you know, like they should be added, like they should allow you to play these cards, because it feels bad that you spent all these wild cards and now you can't play at all on them, right? So, I mean, but I understand, like, yes, Oko's just completely busted.
I mean, yeah,
but
he's doing his world tour of getting banned from every format, right? So, like,
Yeah, that is very true. Modern is probably going to be next, or at least possibly be next.
I
So, oh, go ahead, Grim.
I was gonna say, like, if we're gonna go and talk about like 2019 in review, I think the most 2019 Magic thing that could happen was Oko, right? Like, I mean, you got to see Oko elk a Black Lotus and swing for lethal, like like in Vintage, right? So
So maybe we're dipping into next week's podcast, but forerunner of play design for 2019, Hogak or Oko? Or Once Upon a Time?
I can't choose. They're all so painful.
Because Hogak did something interesting. So the flip side of Pioneer. So basically, modern players, like a good chunk of modern players, like half of all modern players, just jump shift to like Pioneer.
Yep.
So Pioneer is actually a huge format right now. On Goldfish, it's like the second most popular format after Commander, right? And it's basically stolen from modern players. And I don't know if it's just the merit of Pioneer or this is just coming off the back of Hogak Summer. But remember, we had Modern Horizons this year, released a slew of new cards into Modern, Hogak, Renin 6,
Urza.
Pact of Negation, and then we had Hogak Summer, and then people are like, I don't want to play Modern, and then Pioneer happened,
Winter.
everyone jumped to Modern. Pioneer.
I mean, I'm one of those people for the most part. Like, it's kind of strange, and it wasn't an intentional choice, but since Pioneer came to Magic Online, I've played almost no Modern. When I used to play Modern, probably more than any other format, like right up through Modern Horizons releasing this summer. So I guess I can understand other people doing that, because like I kind of accidentally ended up doing that myself for the most part. So I think that Pioneer is definitely, if I had to choose one thing that was my favorite thing and the best thing about this entire year, it's got to be the creation of Pioneer. Like, there's good and there's bad, but Pioneer for me sticks out above the rest as like something that I think is gonna, I mean, you can argue that Pioneer has like saved Magic Online. It is saving Pro Tours in the paper game with the Players Tour event starting in February in just a couple of months. I feel like this is a huge deal, and probably when we look back on 2019, like 5 years in the future, I think Pioneer is going to be the thing that has by far the most longest lasting impact out of the changes this year.
I'm also with Seth here, where I think my favorite thing of the year is easily Pioneer. And I also was playing Modern, and then I just was like, it's just, Pioneer's so much fun because like everything is powerful, right? Like every deck is viable. So far. And like, I do think that like the bannings, like now that it's like perfect pretty much for me. I think that, it's just such a fun format to be playing.
So who was around for the creation of Modern?
I played.
So, like, was it the same split where we had Legacy and then Modern was created and it siphoned players from Legacy? Or did we have, what was the deal with Extended? Like, how, are we seeing the same thing happen, like, a long time
Extended
ago, or is it
died
different?
off before.
Yeah, Extended was very unpopular.
Yeah, it had already died off before Modern even came out. And like, well, I guess like I had played when like, yeah, it was like just a rumored format everyone was building, but it wasn't like it took away from Legacy too much. It was just a fun format to try. Because like still Legacy was its own beast, and Legacy I think will always be its own thing.
But do we have players quitting Legacy to play Modern, or was it Legacy good enough? Because I feel like everyone kind of hates Modern, and we just played it because, I don't know, right? Like the minute we're like, look, there's a format without Karn Liberated. There's a format where you don't get turn 4 comboed. everyone just jump ship. Like, I've never seen a format grow so quickly and be so popular out of the gates, like, ever. So I'm wondering, like, why, right? And is this unique? Has it happened before when Magic has created formats in the past?
I mean, I think that Modern did lead to a lot of growth when it came out in 2011. Like, I think it did become popular pretty quickly, and I think it did, even if you didn't have Legacy players are kind of a unique breed where, like, the true Legacy players are gonna ride and die with Legacy. Like, 50 years from now, if Magic's a dead game, you're gonna have people running, like, Legacy tournaments somewhere. Like, that's how Legacy players are. But I feel like we did see Modern come along and, like, kind of push Legacy a little bit to the background with like SCG tournaments and then GPs. We used to have a lot more support for Legacy back before Modern came in 2011. And I feel like that's what we're kind of seeing with Pioneer, where Pioneer is going to do the same thing with Modern and just like cannibalize the tournament scene and like viewers to some extent, especially for paper. Like digital is different because we don't have Pioneer on Arena at this point. But I feel like we're going to see the same thing. I also think part of the reason that Pioneer succeeded is it is a format that is like relatively accessible compared to other non-rotating formats. Like that's one thing I've been really impressed with is there really are competitive like $100 decks and $50 decks when even in the early days of Modern, you were spending $1,500 like to put together Jund or something. Like those cards were so expensive. So I think that's part of the reason is this feels like a Modern format that not only is really fun and you don't die on turn 3 like you do in Modern all the time, but it's actually accessible to basically anyone. Like you could, I think it's actually easier to build budget decks in Pioneer than it is in Standard, which sounds crazy, but I actually think you can build more competitive $100 decks in the Pioneer format. So I feel like that's a big part of it too, is the accessibility factor.
Yeah, like, and it doesn't feel bad when you're like, because example, like in Modern, a lot of the money comes from like you spending it on like your lands, right? Like you have a lot of fetch lands, all of that stuff, but in Pioneer, you just get the shocks.
And Wizards, I'm assuming it's intentional, but they did a really good job of giving us a ton more shocks with our return to Ravnica and then announcing this format. So if we didn't just get another run of shock lands, maybe you'd have like $30, $40 shock lands. But because they were just reprinted within the last less than a year, even the shock lands aren't that expensive. And we've even seen some show up in like the Brawl decks and stuff. So I feel like Wizards has kind of went out of their way to avoid Pioneer having the same issues of Modern with the mana bases and like how inaccessible Modern mana bases became really quickly with fetch lands and some other lands in the format.
And also I do find it fun that, you know, once again, that one of the hotter cards at the beginning of a format is Thoughtseize, because that was the same with Modern when that came out. I remember I spent like $60 for like my Thoughtseizes because I built like blue-black Teferi Teachings.
Oh, we were playing Teferi back then.
Yeah, but
before all our broken Teferis, huh?
But I realized it wasn't great. I wanted to play with delay again and all that stuff, so that was why.
I wonder. Yeah, I'm like Seth. I haven't played Modern in like months. Right? I'm curious what it's like, and I'm curious if I'll be like, yes, getting Karn. This is right. This is how it's supposed to be.
Home.
But I don't know, to me the death of Modern was Modern Horizons. I just did not appreciate so many format warping cards altogether to further increase the power level of Modern, and to kind of Modern was a format where like you either have the answer or you die on the spot. And then post sideboard, it's like you have the sideboard card or you die in the spot. And then somehow it got worse after Modern Horizons, right?
Where even if you had the answer, you still died on the spot.
There's just too many. You're like, I have the answer, but they have pact negation, so they got my answer, right? But yeah, I don't know. I just feel it was too swingy. Whereas Pioneer, it's just slow enough that you can do janky things and get away with it. Like, it's a turn or two slower. Like, if you didn't kill someone in Modern, like, you were dead on turn 4. Whereas in Pioneer, like, you haven't killed me yet. It's turn 5. I can, like, put together my terrible 3-card combo now and kill you in time because you can't kill me fast enough, right? Like, there's some interaction going on.
Like, I just did a video for Jund Pact, right? Like, being able to play Demonic Pact and make that a thing in Pioneer is pretty fun. That shows you where you're at when a 4-mana enchantment, and then I actually get to just harmless offering it away and win with it often.
I mean, I think really, yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think the reason that I love Modern and a lot of people love Modern is that feeling that anything's playable and there's like 100 different like semi-viable decks that you could like show up to a tournament with, and if things break right and you play well, you can like be successful with. Pioneer has that feeling. But the thing that most people disliked about Modern was the games where you just randomly die on turn 2 or turn 3. You get Karned, or you get Stormed, or whatever. You get Urza, Infinite Urza combo, whatever, like miserable Primeval Titan coming down with Amulet out. Like, that's the part that's missing from Pioneer. So I feel like Pioneer's like the you can have your cake and eat it too format. You get this like huge breadth of decks like you do in Modern, but without the worst part of Modern, which is like you can't interact and you just randomly die and have these miserable non-games. So I feel like Pioneer is like such a huge deal. Like I can't even overstate what a big deal this is for Magic. And I've had some people be like, "Oh, is this going to be like a tiny leaders? Like, is this something that's going to remain popular?" I think that Pioneer is going to put its mark on the tournament scene and be one of the biggest formats in Magic like over the next couple years. I really do.
Yeah, and with the success of Pioneer, so I predict for 2020 that Wizards is gonna go all out on Modern. Like, we're gonna get Wasteland or something in Modern. They're gonna up the power level further because now we have Pioneer. Right? If you don't want to play crazy Magic, right? You have Pioneer, but now since, Modern is like this thing, like you're gonna die in turn 4 anyway, might as well have a Wasteland, right? So,
no.
Or something like that.
No.
We're gonna get more powerful, like, we already have free counterspells. We have, Pact of Negation, right? Like they're gonna make a fixed Wasteland.
That's not forcible.
And that's not Field of the Dead.
I mean,
or something along that line to just bump the power level of Modern.
I don't think you need to do that.
We don't need it, but that's how you sell packs.
I think we see Modern Horizons 2 that is even more pushed than Modern Horizons 1 and puts more like legacy staples into the format, and that maybe where Modern heads is like actually towards like a no reserve list legacy. Like Modern becomes the format that a lot of people who don't play legacy think legacy is, where you just die on turn 2.
Yeah.
And then Pioneer becomes what most people wished Modern was, which is a format with a ton of different playable decks but you can still actually play like a somewhat interactive game of Magic.
I mean, yeah, like that is probably how it's gonna go, and it's a bummer because that's the only format that I enjoy playing Jace the Mind Sculptor in. But maybe it does become that, but like, please, not Wasteland.
Don't worry, Krim. Jace the Mind Sculptor is coming to Standard in 2020.
Oh please.
We had Oko.
Oh please.
Like Jace, he'll come in like 2 colors, be 3 CMC, and like uptick on Brainstorm.
He'll have a fifth ability.
All right, well, we have a couple more formats. We haven't really talked too much about the existing formats. I guess we kind of hit a little bit on Modern with our discussion here with Pioneer. We talked a little bit about Legacy with maybe things not going so well. Where are we at with Standard? This has been one of the I don't even know, like the most divisive standards. Like, people have really enjoyed the format at times. People have really hated the format at times. We've had a record number of bannings. Like, how do you even wrap up 2019 in the context of Standard?
Oko?
Just Standard. I feel Oko gets a bad rap because he's banned everywhere. But just in Standard, his impact was big, but any bigger than, say, Emrakul or Saheeli combo or Smuggler's Copter or any of the broken things we've had in the past. I don't know. We just like to meme on Oko because it's like, yeah, Black Lotus, El Kaha, right? Like, we see him everywhere, right? So he gets more of a bad rap.
He
just
was
for Standard.
Worse than that, though, I think. Like, he was much worse than Felidar combo, in my opinion.
And I think it was also partly not just Oko, but like how powerful the support cards were, like, and how powerful green was. Veil of Summer and Once Upon a Time and One Mana Dork and Gilded Goose, and I feel Nissa, like, I feel like it was Yes, Oko was really busted. There's no doubt about it. But maybe the reason we look at it differently than Smuggler's Copter Emrakul is because it was in a deck that was so busted, because the support cards were so good, to the point where it really did become like a one deck meta. We got up to like historic levels, 70% of Pro Tours being like the people playing basically the same Oko deck. So I think it's maybe like holistically the Oko decks were too good, even though Oko itself is clearly too good because it's been banned in so many formats. But I think that was maybe the bigger problem. And I would even argue that from a play design perspective, you asked this earlier, like Hogak versus Oko. I think the biggest miss from play design, for me, it's got to be Once Upon a Time. I don't think that was like necessarily the most broken card this year, but I feel like that was the card that play design should have known better. Like, how many years have we been to like, hey, free spells are a problem. Bad things happen when you print free spells. You probably should stop printing free spells. And they're like, oh, Once Upon a Time, this will be fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that was like the first thing that we all talked about. It's like, oh, look, a free spell. Like, with my eyes rolled back to my skull. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think this year, like, you're right. It like Oko wasn't the most broken thing. Like, I actually don't even think I was a huge, like, I don't think Oko was a big problem for me in Standard. It was always everything else in Oko.
You don't play creatures.
Exactly. I'm like, I think I'm at a little bit of a different spot because I don't play any creatures. So, but yeah, like I think the whole color pie shift where everything just went into green just made it so that, the whole shell is just like nauseating. Like, in Veil of Summer is a 1-mana answer to my existence. And like, you know, like there was just there's no reason to play any other colors than green.
Yeah. I think Standard's pretty interesting because on one hand, Standard was really fun this year because we got to play on Arena, right? For the first time, you know, online was a first class experience, actually better than paper, right? Because you got to play before any paper pre-release. You know, you got, you know, all of the cool animations, the voice lines. So it was actually a really fun time to play Standard. It was just marred by having terrible standards, right? Like,
Yep.
But at the same time, it was not too bad because, you know, when your Okos were banned, you got some wild cards back, so it was not terrible. But the flux of just getting every deck list banned, and then you didn't know what you wanted to play, to the extent of esports being affected, right? People are like, you know, the event's in a week. Are we getting a banning or no? Right? So I think there was, you know, great rise because of Arena. Standard was kind of meh, but I feel like it's not that bad. Like, I feel like the previous standards were just as bad, right? Like, ever since we went to ban happy phase and we had the new play design team, like, there have been a lot of weird misses as they tried to push to power level and then kind of failed. But I think Arena kind of made up for it this year. I felt like overall it was fun to play Standard.
I think there's also some like recency bias with our like takes on Standard from this year. After M20, I think Standard has been mostly not very good. Like, there's been some good periods here and there, but for the most part, however, I think that like before that, at the beginning of the year, I think this was actually one of the better Standard periods. Like, right after Ravnica Allegiance, even War of the Spark, like that period, the first 6 months of the year, that was, I think, one of the best points that we've had Standard be at in several years, probably. Like, it kind of went very much downhill after M20 and then Throne of Eldraine, but the first 6 months, I think that was actually a very good time for Standard.
Yeah, I think M20 was definitely when I started getting like, there was a little bit of a downswing for me on Standard, but I agree with Seth. Like, War of the Spark, that I actually had a blast. That was so much fun. And before that, like, we've had a good Standard for a very long time. So I think now, like, we're kind of hitting a dud. Like, when was the last time I didn't enjoy Standard? I guess, like, Mardu Vehicles, I guess. Oh, no.
When aggro reigns supreme.
No. Actually, no. It was Ixalan when it was the Teamer mid-range fests. So.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty bad Standard too.
Yeah. It actually made me miss Mardu aggro.
since we're on standard, I got to ask you the big picture topic. One of the conversations that's come up just recently, really towards the end of this year, with all the bannings, huge declines as far as like tournament attendance at PTQs and like standard GPs as far as main events are concerned. Is 2019 the year where standard died in paper and became a arena format, or do you think this is something that's going to reverse itself in 2020 and we're going to see paper standard spring back to life and be very popular and heavily played again?
I think paper standard will be always something like with the way the bannings have gone, it'll be a little scary, to buy into paper standard, right? If a deck is ever like $700 or something like that, and then your like core pieces get banned, it's a little scary, right? Like whereas on Arena, it's just here, you get your wild cards back. So I don't know if that's like, even if we had a good standard, like I don't know if like it'll ever be like the way it was.
Yeah, I think Seth is right. I think 2019 is the death of standard in paper. I think Wizards acknowledges this, right? We see premier events shifting towards casual, like commander play, command zone, command fest type things. The thing we keep glossing over is how expensive Magic is. Like even this past standard, like the most expensive standard ever, like you're talking multiple hundreds of dollars for a deck, where the rise of Arena made it possible for you to play for free, right? You can grind your way into your deck, or for an investment of $50 or $100, you can just straight out buy your decks, as opposed to spending tons of cash on paper cards. And like every year I'm reminded, like Black Friday just passed, I bought God of War for $10, right? Like on PlayStation 4, played it for hours. That's like half of a draft or something of Magic, right? But I'm like, why would I buy a standard deck if I had nothing to do? Or I could buy like a PlayStation and like a million games and play for literally ever. Or I could play any free game like Fortnite, League of Legends, whatever. Or I can play Magic, right? So I feel we're moving away from that with all these free-to-play games. Arena came out the right time. People are jumping to Arena because it's cheaper. And then paper Magic is just kind of going by the wayside because it's expensive.
I mean, I think it's just Commander for me that like I have paper Magic for. I mean, like Pioneer is a huge part of that for me right now. But like if Arena gets Pioneer, then I'm just like, well, all right then. So it's just Commander.
I mean, I think we will continue to see, and we already have scheduled, like Pioneer and Modern tournaments. Like that seems to be what paper pro tours or player tours now are going to be focused on. So I wouldn't be surprised though if that's what we see moving forward, where almost all the big paper events are going to be Pioneer and Modern events, and then standard from Wizards as far as like Mythic Invitationals and pro tour level events is going to be basically exclusively on standard or on Arena rather. Like I think that is what we've seen this year, and I don't think that's going to reverse going into 2020. I think that's the way of the future and what we're going to continue to see. Whether or not that's a good thing or not, I'm not 100% sure. Like it's obviously good that Arena is doing well. How much does paper standard like matter? I don't know. I still, like, traditionally it's mattered a lot. Like, over the course of the history of the game, like, you think, like, paper standard is very important, but maybe it's not in the world of 2019 with Arena and all the other stuff that's going on. So I think that's maybe one of the biggest shifts of the year. Along with Pioneer being, like, such a huge, awesome thing, I think just as far as, like, biggest changes, definitely standard is near the top of my list for 2019.
Yeah, I think the moment that will break it is when the formats diverge somehow. Like we've kind of seen that struggle with Arena trying to push best of one, and then everyone else wanted best of three, and then we see different bannings taking place, like Nexus of Fate banned in best of one. I wonder if we'll ever hit a point where something is banned on Arena or something is added to Arena. So currently on Arena, you could play with cards that aren't available in paper, like the original like Arena promo cards or whatever. They're just terrible. But I wonder if eventually they'll be good enough that someone finds a deck or that they try to make a push and they print a promo that's only available on Arena so that you can only enjoy it on Arena. Kind of like Historic, right? Where they just add something directly to Standard. And I think that is when we'll see, like, you know, Paper and Arena diverge for real.
I think the other sign that we could see would be something getting nerfed rather than banned.
Yeah.
Like
Ooh.
when we first see like, oh, like Oko's +2 is now a 0 ability or something. Like once that happens, that'll be a pretty clear sign that Arena trumps Paper when as far as Standard's concerned.
Yeah, but I don't know if that can ever happen though, right? Like, I mean, do you think it'll happen? Because, I mean, they still have the Paper side of Magic to like uphold, right?
Yeah, but it can just be, I mean, the same way they made Brawl diverge for whatever reason. They're like, online, Oko is banned, but in Paper, he's not banned in Brawl. And you're like, what? Right? They did that for a while, right? So they could just say, now we have two standards, Tabletop Standard and Magic Arena Standard.
Or maybe they just do it for like Best of One. Like in Best of One, Oko is nerfed. Like we saw Nexus banned in Best of One when it wasn't in Best of 3.
Yeah, but like ban lists, I think are a little bit different than what the card does, right? Like if they actually just errata something to where like Oko's +1 is now a minus, right? Like when you Elk, it's actually a minus. Okay, then you see that on digital, and then you buy it in Paper, and then it does something else, and then because like I forgot what
I guess
game.
that's true. Yeah.
Like I think it was like. I played some other card game, and it like they had a digital client where like nothing was the same, and I was like, as you can see, I don't play it anymore, because it's just like, hold on, it does what? Yeah, you didn't know that was been errated. This is terrible. Why would I play this?
Well, it's fine, Krim, because you're like, this card is banned. You can't play it anyway in Tabletop.
Yeah, that's also true.
I'm actually curious if they'll do that, because it's such a waste of a character like Oko and a card.
Would you say it's a waste, or did he do his job? Like, I mean,
he did his job. He did his job right? Very, very well.
We have not forgotten Oko, and we will never forget Oko.
All right, so do we have any other thoughts on kind of our big picture part 1 year in review stuff that we want to talk about, or should we get to some fish mail?
Oh, we skipped out on Pauper.
Oh, you're
so
right.
Pauper, our budget friendly format, has gotten a lot of support from Wizards this year. It was officially sanctioned. They also solidified the ban list, or the legal cards list, with the Magic Online version. And we know Wizards has been printing commons and downshifting things into commons, like for Pauper, for the last couple sets. So Pauper is actually pretty popular. It's like more popular than, say, Brawl, Historic, Oathbreaker. So yeah, what do you guys think of Pauper? Have you guys played Pauper this year?
I was finally gonna play Pauper, and then they banned all the cards I wanted to play. So.
all the broken blue cards that were somehow available in Pauper got the axe.
I go back and forth with Pauper. I do enjoy Pauper at times, but I haven't played it too much recently since like Modern Horizons came around and really shook up the format, and then we had some bannings. So I do like Pauper, and I am glad to see it getting more support. I think it's the kind of format that it's good for players that if it is successful, because it's so cheap and accessible. And I would love to see it become even more of a part of the Magic landscape moving forward. So I think it was definitely a good year for Pauper, although I probably still don't play it as much as I should.
Yeah, I haven't played Pauper in a really long time. Like, the last time I played was with the broken blue cards. But there was, a big push. The professor's been pushing Pauper a lot, and it's kind of just highlighting a need for people to play cheaper Magic. Also, similar to Pauper, Penny Dreadful kind of had its breakout year this year. That's the format where everything costs a cent, available on Magic Online prices, and then they have a rotating list. That also got a lot of traction this year as another format where it is actually cheap. So Pauper you would think is really cheap, but it's not, right? It still costs money because there's a lot of old cards that are just really expensive. Penny Dreadful cuts that out by saying there's a price limit, and when cards get too expensive, they rotate out of the format. And
by expensive, Pauper decks are like $50 to maybe maximum $100 in paper.
Yeah.
And then like on Magic Online, usually like $10 to $50. So expensive is kind of like contextual here. Like it's definitely still way cheaper than most of the other formats we've been talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. So overall, okay, to wrap this up and hit a couple of fish mail, overall feelings about the formats of Magic this year. Like, do you feel like if you lump everything together, the standard bannings and the creation of Pioneer and Historic, like good or bad year overall for these constructed formats? Is Magic heading? They love to these polls for the country. Like, do you think the country is heading in the right direction? Yes or no? Like, do you think these big constructed formats are heading in the right direction?
I think Pioneer is. And I think as standard will eventually correct itself. I mean, like right now it's in a bit of a downswing, as I'd mentioned, but I think it will. I have good faith that it'll pick back up next year.
Yeah, I think overall positive. I actually not even down on standard like you guys. Like I think we had a ton of fun in standard with War of the Spark, all of the planeswalkers, the uncommon planeswalkers, Eldraine, the storybook cards, kind of the alternate art collector's edition, everything, the client. So yeah, standard was not peak optimal play, but it was still fun. So I actually feel it's all going in the right direction. It's net positive. Now there's obviously things that we want to improve, but I feel standard was really strong. I feel Pioneer also really strong, a pleasant surprise. So yeah, I actually had a ton of fun playing Magic in 2019. Maybe the most fun yet, which is interesting because it should get worse over time, right? As you play more, you get more bored and it's all the same, but I felt Magic was pretty fresh this year. We had a lot of experiences and yeah, there were some stumbles, but overall pretty good.
Oddly, I think I'm going to agree with you, and we're not going to have anyone that's the negative person here. I think if you put everything together, overall, I would say that we are heading in the right direction. Obviously, like some formats did better than others, but I think overall their trajectory is heading in the right direction, and in large part, I think that's fueled for me by the creation of Pioneer and just like how big of a deal I think that format is, and how much I've been enjoying that format. So, yeah, I think I'm excited for 2020 and see where all this goes. We have like Players Tour events for Pioneer coming up. We're going to have tons of new stuff coming to Arena. They've talked about like cube drafts and reconstructed sets releasing. Like 2020 is going to be pretty crazy, and I'm super hyped for it.
Agreed.
Anyway, Richard, we got a couple minutes. Sneak in a couple of our best fish mail questions this week.
All right, if you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your question on air. @Bicycle, why do you think WotC made Pioneer? To increase the reprint equity, to get rid of unsold boxes, cash grab for the company's insider traders? I think originally it was not planned for Arena, with WotC not caring about paper. Why make a new paper format? Yeah, what do you guys think? Like, why did this happen? It's obviously good that it happened, but do you think it was to increase sales, to throw a bone to paper players? Like,
I think it was just time for a new format, right? Enough time had passed. I mean, since the inception, like since Modern's creation, this would be the perfect time to start a new format. And they had mentioned before how they want to do stuff without fetch lands, so this is the perfect jump on point to do that, right? Start from like Return to Ravnica and just ban whatever fetch lands are there. I think yeah, just enough time had passed.
I think actually this is something we've talked about for a while, where people have been asking like, is this going to happen? What about like Frontier? Like, will that ever be a format? And for the last few years, I had always said it definitely will happen, and I think it is, like most things, comes back to being profitable for Wizards, and I think it is a way to generate a bunch more reprint equity. Not that it's a bad thing for the players. I think players love the format, so it's a win-win in that sense. But I've just been going through like my paper cards and trying to get them like on Goldfish, so I know exactly what I have and whatnot. And as I'm going through these cards, I keep thinking, man, like we really need like a sweet promo of the fast lands, or like, wow, why is there like a masterpiece of the Buddy lads. And looking at these like Pioneer cards, that we have so many printings of like the old modern staples, the Tarmogoyfs of the world, the Bob. There's a million art. There's different promos, but a lot of the cards that are most important to Pioneer don't have that yet. So I think this gives Wizards like a decade's worth of like promos they can print and master sets they can print and cool new frames they can use for these cards that are suddenly in demand. So I think that that's a big reason for it too.
All right. Oh crap, what now? Let's play another round of Cost This Card. Don't forget to pick the color. Enchantment. You may only attack or block with one creature. After your combat step ends, there's an additional combat step followed by an additional main phase.
Wait.
Red.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of that dragon from Conspiracy or whatever.
I think it'd be red-black. Even though it's like the worst colors for this because of the loader mechanic kind of there. How much would you cost this though?
So we have
Does it have haste?
It's not even. It's an enchantment.
Or yeah, like
it's like
Does it
what's
give
the card?
haste or anything? Or
No, it doesn't give it doesn't give haste. You just get basically double combats forever, but you can only attack with one creature or block with one creature.
Aggravated Assault gives you another combat. But I think if
maybe
that's 5.
I'm
with
looking
no
at
restriction.
like 3 or 4.
only
I think so. If you can only attack with one creature and you get punished by not being able to block with more than one creature, like we have Seize the Day, which is 4 mana. You get an extra combat with one creature. Like you untap one creature and get an extra combat and then can flash it back for 3 mana, so you can do it twice. I think like somewhere in that range is, with the drawbacks, it's probably fine. Maybe like 4-ish.
Yeah.
I would say around 6.
Wait, what? That's
Yeah.
like.
Wait, like it. If you make it too cheap, then then it starts getting a little silly, right? Like it's like, oh boy, because then because like some decks don't need more than just one creature to attack. Imagine like Boggles just attacking more than once.
Yeah, but that's like you might as well just like cast a fling or something, right? Like I don't know. I feel like we have enchantments that allow you to attack multiple times. We have a lot of cards that do it, and I feel they start at 5. So I think I agree with Seth because there's a restriction on this. 4 is fair.
I would start at 5. I would start at 5.
Okay, what colors? What colors though? What do we think on colors?
I would
be
think
like-
mono red.
I would think it's either red or maybe like red white. I don't know. Give it like vigilance or something. I'm trying to throw white a bone here. Okay, so let me.
I think Rakdos. I think I don't know who has like the restriction on attackers and blockers. Is that even colorified? I don't know.
think
I
it's,
always
like,
think loader
colorless.
mechanic.
I think like
Yeah.
Silent Arbiter and other like crawl space, like colorless cards. So I assume any color can do that.
All right. Next question. Lord of the Meese. Krim, you said your team was not in the playoffs. Which team is yours?
The Denver Broncos. But you know what? It's okay because they just got another win. 6
Did you ever live in Denver?
Nope.
How did you become a Broncos fan?
My dad watched Broncos games growing up because he loved watching John Elway. So like because Elway's from Stanford football, and so yeah, like that just made it so that I watched all of the Broncos games, and so naturally I was like, okay, well I guess I like the Broncos. I watched so many of their games.
Yeah. Seth hoodwinked me into watching the Bills game.
Yeah,
This week I was like, oh,
get
this is so
obliterated?
painful.
that's
No,
that's the
it was
Bills' way.
close, but it like the score was close, but it just looked really like the time of possession was like 2-1 for the Patriots, and I'm like, this just looks like the Bills I'm always used to, except like every 10 minutes they somehow wing it for like 50 yards, right? And then otherwise it's like 3 down, 3 down, 3 down. Patriots are like driving down for like 12 minutes, and then somehow like one throw touchdown Bills. I'm like, what?
That's what I've been trying to say all year. Like, yes, they have a good record, but when you watch them, you don't get the like, oh yes, we're really good. You still have this like
Yeah.
lingering feeling of dread that that hangs over you. So.
Yeah. Whereas I watch the Ravens, I'm like, okay, they're Okoing everyone. They're just destroying. Right? It looks good. It's flashy. Bills, I'm like, this is Bills football, all right.
Yeah, like for me, I'm just like caught up like, next year is starting to look so bright because now we have a new quarterback with potential in Drew Lock. So it's like
Well,
there's hope.
You had years of glory with Peyton
Yes.
Manning.
Yes.
Seth had just years of the Buffalo Bills.
Years,
so
yeah.
like decades. Like
I think it was
it was
perfect.
close. The Bills were in position to win their division this year. They had a chance, but the Patriots came in and snuffed it.
It's not surprising. Still, it's still the Patriots at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was pretty cool when the Broncos won the Super Bowl in the one that was at Levi Stadium. I was like, yes.
Did you go see? Did you pay like $8 million?
No, it's like $1 bajillion. But you know what? I was close enough. So that
You were in the
felt
parking
it.
lot. You could hear it.
Yeah. Well, I was close enough to where the traffic was a nuisance.
All right, that's our fish mail this week. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. If you have questions, you can send it to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And that brings us to the end of episode 256 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a wonderful holiday season, everyone. We will be back next week with part 2 of our year in review and Theros Beyond Death spoilers. So, until then, have a happy holidays, and this is the crew signing out.